Their plan is almost beyond a James Bond plot thriller for world domination, and it's based on a new world currency. And the key to instituting the new currency is a collapse and a vacuum that draws in their new currency to replace all the other currencies that have collapsed in this coming energy war. And when you saw that refinery go up, that was it. That was the first blow against Russia's ability. You know, Russia's the world's largest oil, gas exporter. Their economy relies primarily on oil, gas exports to Eastern and Western Europe to survive. If their refinery mysteriously has been sabotaged, if it just broke because somebody forgot to turn a valve, who cares? Doesn't matter. They're going to interpret it as sabotage and probably be more right than wrong. And at the end of the day, what are they going to do? They're going to come back and retaliate. And what are they going to retaliate at? Whoever they believe is the one that's prodding them, the one that's causing the problem. That's going to be us.
Yeah.
You know who was opposing Putin in Syria? It was the Saudis who were using the American military and the NATO military and their State Departments and political liaisons. It wasn't just a war of machines and men. It was a war of politics going on into Syria. So the Saudis were essentially owning that whole attack going into Syria. So world energy prices have been modulated with the Saudis at the head of OPEC being able to control the price of oil, and the pricing of oil, which is in dollars, our American dollar. And if Putin's going to respond in an oil war, who's he going to respond to? The group that's causing him the most grief, Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
And their allies. And when they attack Saudi Arabia, any kind of an attack on oil in the Mideast is a direct attack on the American dollar. And it is, even though it seems like it's half a world away, believe me, your listeners will feel every blow that's coming in a very personal way. If you remember, in early 2008, what happened before we had this collapse of the banking system that Bush and everybody had to come out and save us from, that was going to be all over in 24 hours if they hadn't taken action?
Oh, yeah.
The beginning of the year was high oil prices, high energy prices, high gas prices at the pump. And it locked up the American economy. We were right on the edge. Well, we had some elasticity, some ability to work through that because we had some momentum. But now we're on our heels. What kind of an impact is higher energy prices going to have on the American machine at this time? Even if it's just relatively modest like it was in 2008, I'd say it's going to have orders of magnitude or more impact on our ability to function and survive than it did then. We're in serious trouble.
Yes, we are. Well, you know what I find interesting? That this is just a little aside. This is a couple of guys talking here with actually a few tens of thousands of our closest friends. And may all of you be blessed for being here. Do you know, I actually heard, and it didn't sound to me like he was just being flippant. Maybe he was. But, I heard Sean Hannity talking about how, Putin doesn't want Ukraine to be part of the New World Order, so he's decided to take take matters into his own hands. And the way that he said it, it was if he had already accepted that's what they were trying to do, that's what we're already pulled into, and that, this Vlad Putin guy just has a problem joining the New World Order or permitting Ukraine to join it. New World Order. That just doesn't really sound good to me. It doesn't sound any better to me now than it did, 20 years ago or more when George H.W. Bush used it 100 and however many times. I mean, this is a real strong push for this. And now the head of the virtual currency exchange, Autumn Ratke, 28 years old, CEO of an upstart Bitcoin exchange, is looking like suicide for her. All these bankers are committing suicide, and you just said, hey, we're getting close, the economic thing. And so many people are saying we're getting close, but they've been saying it for a couple of years, so it's like, okay, I grant you we're closer. But does anybody have anything like did Mr. Hughes by chance leave behind a crystal ball that actually works? Because I could use one. I mean, mine's in the shop. It's been there for years.
I wish I could say more than I want to right now, but I will say this. I was primed for this moment 40 years ago. The understanding I have now comes from conversations that happened when I was so wet behind the ears, it's scary. And every day I see things and I remember those conversations that I got to be a fly on the wall on that I didn't fully grasp the magnitude of what I was hearing at the time. I was a kid. And now I look back and I go, oh my gosh, they saw it so clearly. They knew exactly where we were going, where this whole thing was going. It drives me, it's just astonishing. Someday, and some of the stuff I put in oral histories that I think will be interesting to people down the road, but it's not conversations that can be had right now. But let me just say this. I had a soiree meeting with some pretty influential mover shakers within the last 2 weeks. Names that every person in your audience would know instantly from the political and business world. And the conversation in this meeting, I heard all the comments and I listened patiently as everybody was giving their views and thoughts. And they were all Americans. And to a person, they were not at all worried about the evolution of events in Ukraine and the corner that Putin was being pushed into. This was when the Olympics were still on. And they had the attitude, the belief, that we had Mr. Putin right where we wanted him, and that our State Department and our government had masterfully put Russia right back into their box, a la the same thing that we did back at the tail end of Reagan and the first part of Bush 1, prior to the wall coming down. And I'll tell your audience that I told those people at that time. I said, over more words than I'll use right now, but essentially I said, look, first of all, Mr. Putin has been playing rope-a-dope. If you remember Muhammad Ali, he'd let his opponent come in there and flail away, and he would tuck his arms in, tuck his chin down, and take those blows, those body punches, and absorb them, and preserve his own strength in his arms. And he had the belief that he could take and absorb those punches, let his body roll a little bit and absorb them, and that the hits wouldn't be as brutal to him as they were exercising to his opponent. And then, in later rounds, he would stop the rope-a-dope and actually start fighting when his opponent had already, done his shot and worn himself out.
Right.
This situation with Mr. Putin on the Olympics, for a decade, all the players in this globalist conspiracy, let's call it what it is, had been maneuvering everything for this exact moment in time, this last couple of years, year and a half, where Mr. Putin, because he had all this money, this incredible money, going into putting on the Sochi Olympics and bringing the whole world there, and he was somewhat hamstrung because things that he might have done to posture himself, world opinion and the threat of having the games canceled, all back to the Carter era and things like that, was enough that he was hamstrung and restrained him from being able to take action when stuff was going on in Syria. There were a number of times He talked about the red line and things like that over the last year and a half, 2 years. And he went to the UN. He talked to the world. He said, this doesn't make sense. Why are you backing the same people who did what they did in Egypt, in Syria? And, we just kept coming at him. Even up with the mischief in Ukraine, which has been building for quite some time, the last year and a half also. Look at where the Boston bombers came from if you wanted to look for scapegoats and another false flag attempt.
Right.
So, and nobody's paying attention to the Saudi that ran off and disappeared. And remember, who was directly trying to engage Russia? Saudis, using our military and our connections in NATO's. There in Syria. So now the Olympics are over, and what I told my friends is I said, look, Putin, when these Olympics are over, you've been here in this boxing match, watching this match, and our guy with his chicken legs is over there throwing these silly, poofy punches and being annoying. But you know what Putin's going to do? He's going to come out of his corner when those Olympics are over. He's going to come out of his corner. He's going to drop the glove. Somebody is going to lock the door on this cage because it's not a boxing ring. And we're going to find ourselves in a cage fight with Mr. Putin, a battle to the death. And by the way, our guy, what's his signature pose in this boxing match? Look at any picture of him. He sticks his nose in the air, his chin up. That's a glass jaw he's showing our opponent.
Yep.
That pride, the biblical scripture is, pride goeth before the fall. I told every one of those people in that room, you are doing the same thing. You think that you, as Americans, and in your positions of authority, in your business positions, in your political positions, that you are untouchable. But you're basing that on the last several rounds when your opponent was playing rope-a-dope. Your guy, if he throws a ball at the opening of the baseball season and you're an umpire on third base, you better duck. It might hit you.
Right.
It's not going over the plate. Old chicken legs there, he can't throw a ball he can't throw a swing. Putin took every blow that NATO and the West could throw at him. And now, exactly as I said, he came out of the corner, drops those gloves. We are in a cage fight, and everything's legal.
Oh, yes.
You're going to get a knee to the side, broken ribs, cracked skull, and the final coup de grace punch is a blast to that glass jaw dollar. It's the reason every person in that room thought they were invincible. It's their most vulnerable point. It's the soft underbelly of the American power grid. Our ability to project power out into the entire world is based on the dollar as the world's reserve currency. It's that dollar, which all oil is traded in, that allows us to field the largest military in the world, the Navy that covers all the oceans, and to ensure the free flow of shipping and energy at reasonable prices all over the world. Now, the first answer that I got back from the audience, the crowd, the people at the table, was, oh, you don't understand. The reality is that we can outspend and we can do whatever we want. And if oil gets cut off from the Mideast, we're doing more oil here in the U.S. We're energy independent. We can take care of ourselves. I said, you're not understanding. It's not about us. It's not about our ability to get energy for us. It's about the rest of the world's ability to get energy. And if the rest of the world can't get energy at reasonable prices, they shut down. What do you think we're going to do in a world that doesn't need American business because nobody's doing any business? The business of America's business. Shut down the rest of the world. Who needs us? So all of a sudden, You attack the dollar, you put the whole world on its heels. And if you're only thinking in terms of us against Putin or us and the Chinese against each other in a three-level chess game, then you're missing the real picture that you need to step back off the whole planet and think of it in a different way. This is a globalist agenda. They're going to take everybody down. They want everybody in ashes so that they can then, out of those ashes, create their new world order for the ages. This is a reinvention. These people, these grifters, these families have done this several times. It was Greece, it was Rome, it was London, now it's the U.S. And oh, by the way, let me just add this. Where are all these banks located ultimately? New York? Chicago? Tokyo? Brussels? No, they're all in London.
Yep.
They're all in London. And so in the American, one of the comments that came out at the table, and I've heard this before, so I was well prepared to answer it. Well, if America isn't here to be the leader of the free world, then the free world ceases to exist. There's nobody to take the helm. It'd be the end of the world as we know it. Well, it is going to be the end of the world as you know it is in America. But the reality is these banksters, these families have a plan. And that plan is that they're going to create a vacuum and then fill that vacuum with the pieces they already have in play and in place. That's those Commonwealth countries, those seeds for the rest of these new trading blocks that are going to be out there. And they've been telling you for decades that it's coming. Their new world order is going to be based out of London. Their new world order is going to be these trading blocks based on these core Commonwealth countries. Power is going back to England, but not to the crown, but to the banking capital of the world, that square mile at the center of London that controls everything. And America, they don't need you. They don't want you. You're the Titanic. You've been convinced that you are the unthinkable. And the reality is, you're a straw man. From the moment the boat went past the design stage, it was designed to fail. The Federal Reserve is a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme always reaches an end, and then it burns out. They're going to sink you, and then they're going to fill the gap as though, new and improved 99 and 44 100% pure. It's going to be a new world order. It's not a new world order. It's the same old guys with new garb, new clothes, new faces, new names. It's the same guys, the same families, these grifter families, re-enslaving the world, but this time a little more precisely, a little more completely than ever has been accomplished before if they get their way. God help us. I believe that God himself will not allow that. But the fight is on, and it will not, we're not going through this without being scathed. And I don't care how many of your listeners, decide that they're going to engage. This is going to be brutal. It's going to be horrible.
It's going to be brutal, and it's going to be horrible.
Mind control for everyone. Mind control for everyone. Take your Pfizer pill, put your face nappy on. Mind control for everyone. Commencing lockdown, COVID scam. Check cognition, has COVID replaced the flu? This is mind control for everyone. We've really all been played. As the papers tell us, worship billionaires. Are you following the program and don't care? This is Boris Johnson mind control, like 1984. They're now gloating in a most peculiar way, as the world looks very different today. Are we living through a big scam? All across the world, COVID is just flu, not what they've been telling you. They're now past 100,000 lives, but who is getting ill? And they think censorship is the way to go. Half my life I've said this very much, you know. Mind control for everyone. This guy is dead. There's something wrong. Can you